we're going to take a dive with Rachel Easton. She is one of the environmental educator, one of several educators that run something called Harbor Wild Watch in Gig Harbor. Tech Trek Camp has used them for several years as a field trip. It's very close for us when we are at Pacific Lutheran University. And we've done a number of activities over the years, a couple of different beaches we've visited and done things at. And Rachel is an environmental educator. She came out of Central Washington University, although she was born right here along the Puget Sound or the Salish Sea. So her toes are webbed, as we say. And she's also a biological specimens manager at times. Spent time with the Point Defiance Zoo and the aquarium. Let's see, she's been with Harbor Wild Watch, my goodness, pushing 15 years now. Wow, cool. You got a nice niche there. You got a cool spot, as they say. So she develops and coordinates, evaluates, and puts out environmental education regarding places along the Sound, and particularly there in the Gig Harbor area. And she also takes care of their social media. So between wearing her wellies and sitting barefooted at her computer, she's pretty busy. Can I just say that? Rachel, it's all yours.
All right. Well, I have to say thanks again for participating with us once again. This is something I always look forward to, seeing all the amazing young faces and just amazing women who are coming up in the STEM field. Is always just makes my heart happy to know that there are more of you out there and it's not just me and my coworkers. So I am Rachel Easton. I am the education director, and I have had some really weird and strange jobs. So let me walk you through them really quick. I've got this cool presentation here somewhere. Let me find it. Of course, it's at the very bottom. So like Kat said, I have been a curious person my entire life. This is me on the shores of Puget Sound as a little tiny girl in the 80s, hence the pink puffy jacket. But I've been around here. My dad really helped me when I was a little kid, answering all of my questions. And let me tell you, there was a lot of questions. Always been really super curious. And I have the privilege of really coming of age during an analog childhood. So when I grew up, there was no internet until I was in middle school. And right about when I was starting to kind of figure all of that out was when my passion for the environment was just on fire. And so it was great because I could see something at the beach and then I could go, and we used to use an online encyclopedia called Encarta. This was before Google. That's how old I am. But it was really kind of great, and this just perfect time for me to be able to grow my knowledge base about a lot of things. So how did I get this job? Well, I started my school career at our local community college right here in Tacoma. It's an excellent facility with really top-notch instructors, and I loved it because I got to stay home, and I live in a really great place, so it was nice not having to move away from home just immediately after high school. And then I transferred to Central Washington University, which is only about 2 hours east of here, right in the smack middle of the state. And it was close enough that I could come home and visit. So if you're a little bit of a homebody, there are some great opportunities in schools right close to home. While I was there, I actually changed majors. So this photo right here is the science building. I initially was going to college to be a literature professor. I love books, I love writing. I thought, this would be perfect. I could just teach people the English language and all the ins and outs and grammar, and then focus on literature. But the literature building at Central Washington University was designed by a guy who went on and designed a couple prisons. It won some awards at the time, but like the windows were 4 inches wide and 12 foot long, and it was dark and dreary and very much like you'd want to have a cup of cocoa in those rooms, but not like spend hours and hours and hours doing your studying there. This brand new facility had just opened up, and I took a tour of the science building, and I was like, I actually really do like sea life and biology and ecology. So I changed majors. And that actually set me on a weird path, because the way that things work with the colleges is you had to take classes in series. So I needed to take the general chemistry series, and then I had to take the organic chemistry series, and they were only offered in fall, winter, and spring quarter, like in order. And so I had missed it by the time I got there and decided I didn't want to be a literature major. I wanted to change to biology. I was a year behind. Which actually worked out in my favor perfectly, because at the end of my my kind of school career, I got to take what I call all the ologies. So I had holes in my schedule. So I got to take mammalogy and plant taxonomy and mycology, which is the study of like mushrooms. I never would have taken a mushroom class. I was not excited about mushrooms, but I took a mycology class, and I took an ichthyology class, and I took a limnology class, all the ologies. And it was fantastic, and it really just added to my knowledge base. So that was pretty great for me. And then in my spare time, I worked for the biology department. And in this building, they had a live animal collection, which is kind of how my animal husbandry got kicked off. Also, my advisor. So when you get to college, you'll have like a person who is there to kind of help you. My advisor was a coral reef biologist, which I just fell in love with. He had a tank in his office, so I'd go for office hours and we would talk about coral reef keeping. And I eventually took over all of the tanks in the science building. And they're still there today, although I don't think any of the same fish that I cared for were there. But once I got through graduation, I picked up an internship at our local Point Defiance Zoo right here in Tacoma. It is a world-class facility and one of the few places where there is a zoo, a full zoo and a full aquarium on the same property. And so I worked in the animal collections. I also went through this weird phase where I dyed my hair black. I don't know. This looks better for me. I grew out of that. But that's me right there. It's hard to tell. Feeding the moray eel. And I learned a ton there, and I realized, wow, I kind of like giving the presentations at the zoo. I'm good at speaking to public in large groups, and it's always really fun for me. I never thought I would be a public speaker. I was a very shy child growing up, very nervous, like when you go to Dairy Queen and you get the token that you can turn in for your treat at the end of your Happy Meal or whatever. I would not do that, because it meant talking to a stranger and telling them that I wanted a chocolate dilly bar. Like I would forgo that. I was so shy, you guys, and now I speak publicly to thousands of people all the time. And it came about because I realized that I knew more about these fish in this tank than anyone else did. And if they knew more about these species, then I wanted to talk to them. And so it was great knowing that I wasn't really going to be challenged because I was an authority on this. And so that led me to want to be an authority and just collect and hoard all of the knowledge. So once I was there as an aquarist, I was doing animal husbandry, breeding seahorses, feeding sharks, doing all kinds of cool science with maintaining the life support systems for those animals. Then I also branched into the interpreter side of things, where I worked with the public, giving presentations and live animal talks and things like that, which was really fun. And then in 2007, in my own hometown, I answered a Craigslist ad for a beach captain. And that's me as a beach captain right there. Notice it's the old logo for Harper Wild Watch. It's a lot more polished now, but I was a beach captain. The year after that, they hired me back as a naturalist, and then I became the lead naturalist, and I kind of coordinated amongst all of the other teachers that we had who were doing these low tide touch tank programs. In 2013, we actually incorporated as a nonprofit and had the ability to have staff. So I was finally an employee and not just a contractor. And then that was the program coordinator role. And then in 2018, I've now assumed the education director role, which is what I'm doing now. And what that means when you work for a small organization is you do a little bit of everything. So I do a little bit of everything. One of my main roles is coordinating our public programs. So all of the ways that we are out and about with the public, inviting them into our space here at the Scansey Visitor and Interpretive Center, where we have touch tanks, We have this cool augmented reality sandbox that's really great. But basically, our programs falls to me. I also write all of our curricula for our school programs, and I have to make sure that all of that lines up with the state standards for education. So we use the national science standards, which is next generation science standards. So I had to learn all those. I also had to learn, speaking of learning curves, I had to learn TikTok this year, you guys. And I have to toot my own horn because I'm kind of TikTok famous, which is wild. Like, I never thought that this was a thing that I would do, but with the pandemic shutting down all of our public programs and me still having this heart for education, I want to reach people. I want to get our name out there and get, inspire stewardship for Salish Sea. We joined TikTok, and we have like 300,000 followers. We're almost and this close to having 5 million likes on the platform. So that is wild. It's so cool. And I had to learn it. It was a skill I did not have. And then of course we take care of all the animals that are here. And I actually just was collecting yesterday, and we have brand new full tanks full of all kinds of cool creatures. So I guess my main takeaway that I want you all to kind of absorb is this idea of ikigai. And this is a Japanese philosophy that is basically helps you understand your purpose. Now, when I was 13, 14 years old, I had no idea what I wanted to do or be. I probably thought I was going to be a mom and I would get married someday. I knew I wanted to go to school and just learn more things, but really I didn't have a clue where it was going to take me career-wise. And it really took me until probably after college to realize what I wanted to do. And now I have what this kind of great sense of purpose that is ikigai. And so basically the way that it works is you take something that you love. So for me, that's nature, the environment, the biological processes are just fascinating to me. And I love that. And I think I would probably do this job even if they did not pay me, but don't tell them that because I do need to make a living. It's something, what are you good at? So what skills, what talents do you have? What do you bring to the table that is different than everyone else? What is something that the world needs? And so for me, it's education and to understand this amazing resource that we have that is the Salish Sea. And then how can you get paid to do those things? And when all of those areas kind of overlap, that's your ikigai. So I've managed it. So people always ask me, how do you get your job? And I say, well, you're going to have to fight me for it because I'm not giving it up very easily. This is my life's calling, and I hope nothing ever changes. I hope to be with this organization for a long, long time because it's just been wonderful to kind of watch it grow. We formed in 2004, and I joined in 2007. So I've been with it nearly since the beginning. And I love it so much. It's so fantastic to be able to use different skills and talents. And a little bit about me, I actually was diagnosed last year with ADHD, which is something that it's not something that like you develop. It's not, you have it or you don't. And through my entire childhood, I had this. It was a struggle for me in school and in college. And I just never really realized that I was any different than anyone else. But last October, I got a diagnosis of ADHD. And I've been learning more about how a neurotypical brain works and how a neurodivergent brain works. And if you are one of those people, you think, maybe my brain doesn't work like everybody else, like encourage you, investigate a little bit, be curious about your own self, because you can learn tips and tools and different ways to cope and still be able to be successful and get ahead. And for me, I really think my ADHD is a bit of a superpower. The things that I can do where I put my mind to it, like you cannot. Bulldog is not strong enough of a word. Like I can go after something at the expense, like I don't need to eat, I don't need to pee. I will just keep learning and keep absorbing and keep building this skill or this talent or whatever it may be. And so there is a bit of determination there that comes along with that diagnosis. Now, there's been challenges too, of course. When something is boring to me, I cannot make myself do it. So being in a really flexible job position is ideal for me. So I'm always doing something new, like learning TikTok has been awesome. Awesome for me and my abilities. So the things that I would recommend you do if you want to get ahead in STEM or STEAM careers is one, continue to be curious, never stop learning. The STEM field is so wide and broad, and the more closely you look at it, the more you're going to discover that you don't know, which is great. So definitely stay curious. I recommend that everyone learns how to communicate well, and whether that is speaking publicly or even just communicating with other humans. You will never work in a vacuum. It will never be just you. You'll always need to convey your ideas and your thoughts to other people, and so practice that. You're not the first person who's struggled with speaking. There are tons and tons of resources out there to help you communicate clearly, which can be really, really important. Got my 1 minute warning?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Way to keep me on track.
Ladies, you can start putting comments in the chat for Miss Easton if you like, okay?
Perfect.
And she'll answer a few. Please finish your how to get ahead, though. I'm paying attention.
This is good. Be coachable and flexible. So this is a really hard thing, especially for me. I have what is known as rejection sensitive dysphoria, where if somebody says something critical of me, I take it personally, and they hate me as a person, and really they just want me to like improve my presentation or whatever. So be coachable, and that takes practice a little bit. Keep building skills and learning new things. And then finally, make connections with people, whether it's a mentor, somebody in your field that you look up to and can help guide you, or even just people in the area that you want to eventually be in. And for you kids, as you're kind of coming up in this social media realm, like follow pages of people who are doing the jobs that you want to do, comment on them, make your name known a little bit, and that's going to help you get ahead. And then just one last final thing, some things that are great resources for you. Of course, the AAUW, that group is fantastic. Toastmasters International is another one that teaches people how to speak. I recommend the National Association for Interpreters if you are at all predisposed towards teaching or conveying information in your field. There are some program quality initiative groups and trainings. And then because we're dealing with a world that is changing because of climate change, I've taken very specialized workshops to help me understand that so that then I can teach that out. So all of that is my advice for you for how to get ahead in STEAM careers. And I think that's it. Oh, and then please follow us because we need more people. All right. Oh, so many good questions. Okay, I love it. Oh, you've done the dive of the Shark Tank. So I used to take care of those sharks. I know them all by name and number, and I'm still friends with the people who manage their care. So I feel like I still know those sharks, which is great. My favorite part of my job is when I see a light bulb go on in somebody's brain. And so when somebody asks a question, they're not sure about something, and then I explain it, and then they have this like pause, and then, that's my favorite moment. And sometimes it happens with like a 2-year-old kid who's learning that the water in the touch tank is cold. Sometimes it happens with the 80-year-old man who's like, I never knew that sand dollars were living animals, which is great. How much does it pay? A great question. You're very wise to be asking that question. We work for a nonprofit, so I don't make a ton of money. I think I'm making like $25 an hour right now, which is not great. I would have a hard time supporting myself if I was not married to my husband. But the fulfillment that I get and the happiness that I get from it, I think offsets that. So my vacation, I'm taking my vacation next week, and I'm actually going, it's a work trip. I'm going to tide pools to film videos, to post to TikTok and YouTube and all of that. And that's my vacation because I love what I do so much. I don't mind working as long as I get to bring my family with me. So I do get to travel just a little bit, not as much as I would like, because we're so marine based and really everything is so specialized here in the Salish Sea. I don't really get to get outside of our area too often. Oh, so the eel's name, he had lots of names. I just called him Mr. Moray. But the other eel that you can't see in the photo, his name is Marshmallow because that's what he felt like when you touched him, like a squishy, soft marshmallow. Our TikTok handle is at Harbor Wild Watch, all one word. And you'll see the little heron logo. It's got a little white heron. So I do more outside work than in the lab. Right now, because we've been shut down because of COVID, like this is like my 4th time in my office in the past year and a half. So we've had the flexibility to work from home and do a lot of that. So I do, you know, you have emails, or you have, I have a spreadsheet that I have to account for and run pivot tables for, so that we can do grant reports and things like that. But I do a lot of in the field work or in the classroom where I'm actively teaching kids. And yes, is it possible for middle school and high school students to be unpaid interns with Harbor Wildwatch? Now, here's the thing. I'm working really hard to get grants so that we'd have paid internships for our high school interns. You do have to be, I think, 16 to intern with us. I'll double check that. But the way, if you're interested, you can always shoot me a message, Rachel@harborwildwatch.org, or message us through our Facebook or Instagram, and that comes to me too. So if you have questions, that is something that you can do. And I this is how it kind of always works. Like I answer a question and then you get like 5 more questions. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer your questions as well. Let's see.
Rachel, take can you take 2 more, Rachel?
I can, yeah.
Thank you. Good luck. Pick and choose.
Let's see. Okay, so my favorite place, the question is from Hope. What's your favorite place in Washington to explore beaches and tide pools? And this is something that I only ventured out to last year, and I was only able to go because of the pandemic, because it shut down all of our local programs and we couldn't invite people to the beach. It gave me the freedom to travel outside of my normal, because like normally I work at every low tide, and so I don't get to go to new places during low tide. And it is Salt Creek up near Port Angeles. It's a county park of all things, but it is a marine preserve, and it is fantastic tide pooling. Like my eyeballs hurt from looking at all the beautiful things out there, and I would spend 6 hours. We just got back from camping like 2 weeks ago out there, and I was on the beach every day for 6 hours, and I still didn't get enough of it. It's so great. And then here is a great question. Do I write grants? I don't do the grant writing. This is where my skills and talents are in the program side of things. My boss, Lindsay, she is a fantastically like detail-oriented person. She does all of our grant writing. And so she's got, gosh, over 10 years of experience doing that. She's getting really, really great at it. And all she has to do for me is say, Rachel, tell me how many programs we did last year, or how many minutes were viewed on our TikTok account last month, or, you know, that sort of thing. And then she's able to kind of chase down money from different organizations. So grant writing is super critical to what we do. We rely on grants and donations. Eventually, we'll get to the point where we have maybe some like legacy donors, where people pass away and leave a portion of their estate to us, and then we can kind of make money on that funds. But we're not quite there yet. So grants it is. We write a lot of grants every single year. Oh, you can't ask me my favorite animal. Several people have asked me my favorite animal. I have categories for favorite animals, but I will tell you about my favorite fish. And it is the Pacific spiny lumpsucker. And it's like a little golf ball, little fish. They're round. They have little tiny pectoral fins that they just kind of go and like motor around, and they have a suction cup, a modified fin on their belly. And so they just sticks to things, and they are so stinking cute. And you should all Google Pacific spiny lumpsucker someday, because you'll just spend hours looking at videos. They're so cute.
Rachel, thank you so much for joining us. I didn't want to miss our beach time today, this week. No, I didn't want to miss the beach time. We've always, my Eastern Washington camp is always jealous that they don't get this, because they're out there, but they do have a wildlife refuge and some other things going out there that are pretty cool too. But sorry, my heart's at the beach in the sand too.